there are 2-3 emerging trends that are going to shake up the industry in that sense, right? One of them, I think everybody has been talking about. I'd love to hear your point of view and hear your other trends. Is what Apple did recently in their iOS update, where you can't track data of what websites I'm visiting and the different apps that I'm using, which is basically how Facebook built its entire business, and that was taken away by Apple, and that created a huge sort of moment in that advertising industry where things will now change. Things will have to change, and I think Google is coming up. Google 23 is the cookie policy. The cookie is getting removed or something like that, right? I think that got pushed slightly, but those are two fundamental changes in the advertising industry, because as we know it, in the last 10 years since Facebook came about, Google came about, this is how ads were being served to us, right? Depending on the places that I was visiting on the internet, depending on the content that I was consuming, I was getting ads according to that. If that changes, what happens now?
For me, there are like 3 or 4 trends that describe everything you just said, right? One is there's digitization of supply, and 2 is there are enhancements in the world of measurement. If I'm Siddharth and I look at something on my television and then I walk down the street and open my phone and look at something, how does the ad industry know that I'm the same person on multiple devices? And so measurement and enhancements to attribution is another big area of innovation. Cookies have been around for 30 years, where the ability to drop a cookie in your browser and the ability for some other website to read it and somehow model the fact that there is a high level of likelihood that it's the same person. And if I know that, then I know what they're interested in. And so I can contextualize ads better. Right? A lot of people get very freaked out by the fact that, I went to buy a mattress and then next day I'm seeing a mattress ad somewhere else and I am scared. The whole internet is stalking me. Right? But there is an element of this where it's just a lack of trust. I remember when Netflix came out and I went and said, I like comedy movies. And the next day they showed me some great comedy movies. And I said, wow, what a great recommendation engine, right? The internet is effectively trying to do the same thing, but there is room to abuse that power because regulation has to catch up. And so every browser has said, cookies are not the way to do it because there are too many loopholes in this ecosystem, although it does have several benefits. And so now you have a string of technology providers trying to create better identity solutions. And you have governments who are trying to keep up. GDPR in Europe set the stage by launching policy that is aimed at policing this. India launched a privacy bill and then has pulled back, and we're hoping that they will launch it again. But governments are also trying to say, okay, do we have a role to play in this at all? Do we regulate this? And if so, how? And their technology is moving faster than they expected it. So they are also in this place where they're going to have to keep up. But I think somewhere in the middle of all this is a privacy compliant monetization standard or protocol that will enable this whole set of transactions to happen in a safe ecosystem. And I think that's what everyone's trying to do. Now, you could argue that some people don't care. They're like, read my cookies. I don't care. I just want this website for free. Some people are going to say, if you show me an ads, I will use an ad blocker. You are looking at multiple stakeholders who all are tech enabled and are going to have to find middle ground. I'm not entirely sure policy is the way to find middle ground. But if there's anything we've learned from technology evolutions and general purpose technologies over the years, is that technology will find a way at some point.
Yeah.
Kavita, I don't know if you had a different point.
No, yeah. So I agree with you. Regulation, curbing fraud, and promoting trust. These 3 will see a lot of focus in the next decade, right? And this will have participation from both government and the private sector as well. And it's going to be a dance, like you said, everybody's tech enabled. So whether I'm using it for good or bad, it's every time I put out a policy, I have something to counteract it. So it's going to constantly be this amazing dance that we see. But one of the trends that I am really, really keen on and I'm looking at very carefully, and that kind of segues into the next section that we're also going to talk about as well, is one is the creator tools that are coming up. And I mean, I'm really bummed that India doesn't have TikTok because there's so much, it's so storied and everybody talks about it so much. I'm dying to see what are these creator tools. And they have a lot of creator tools that are really empowering people. And I mean, just taking into consideration what the 3 of us are doing right here, right? We would have had to go to a sound studio at some point in time in the past to actually record this. And we're sitting in the comfort of our homes and we have great mics and we're going to be able to turn this around in record time, and with very little effort from ourselves physically. We're at least giving ourselves, I can get up here and get and cut to the next scene of my life with absolutely no friction. So creator tools is going to be another thing that is going to really, really change the game for the industry in general. And that's going to also give, I believe, traditional broadcasters also run for their money, right?
Yeah.
And we see this chaos that's happening right now with original content. Should Netflix be sinking in more money into original content? Is TikTok actually going to come on to CTV and do something on CTV themselves? CTV being connected television, or fast as we call it. Where does content come from today? And the concept of creation of content today is something that everybody and anybody can do. Anybody can be a content creator and can be a lucrative means of earning a living. There's a lot to be said about the trends in terms of audience data management, trust, fraud, and regulation. But there's also a lot that's happening in terms of creation of content in itself, because that is something that was held very dear to certain types and certain sections of the workflow in itself, right? The value chain of content production in itself. There were only those many number of actors, only those many number of production homes, and so on and so forth. Today, I can be an actor, a producer, director, everything all in one, and I can make a pretty penny trying to do whatever I have to, because I have all the tech in the world to be able to drive discovery, consumption, and like Anand is saying, with Web3 around the corner, monetization is no longer an afterthought. It's woven
Yeah.
into the fabric of what I'm doing in terms of content creation. Nobody's thinking twice that I have to pay you to watch this. If it's great and I want to watch it and I can afford it, I'll pay you, because it's easy for me to pay you using any kind of method today, be it PayPal or, I don't know,
Yeah.
coins, whatever. And I'm not going to Web3, but anyway,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot. There's a lot to unpack in the creator tool.
What was not so intuitive for me, which you just mentioned, is apart from the innovation that's happening on the ad tech side, right? As you said, the supply of it, the delivery of it, the content itself is changing. The content, the way
Yeah,
we consume content and where we consume content is changing. And therefore, it's automatically going to result in a different kind of ad format, right? A
yeah,
classic example of this is, I mean, what's happening with Bollywood today is that competition for content, apart from that boycott Bollywood movement, whatever that is. But it's the competition for content, right? Why do I now go and watch a movie which 70% of the times is not going to be worth my time, right? 70-80% of the times is not going to be worth my time, versus watching something on Netflix that I've gotten rave reviews for, or spending time on reels for an hour, right? Like I'm getting entertained at the end of the day, and that was the goal. And the ads that were served in Bollywood, the way they were served in intervals or trailers, versus these vloggers or these Instagram reels are doing ads right there, it's integrated, right? So completely different ball game in terms of how the ads are going to be consumed.